Okay, hello, welcome back to another video. Today we are facing the move d4. We're going to play, of course, an old Benoni here, a nice and dynamic way of not giving our opponent exactly what they want with a d4, d5 position, going into a London, going into a Queen's Gambit, going into one of these basic openings, in which, let's be honest, our opponent is going to be very well prepared. Instead, c5, an old Benoni, a relic of the past. I guess. I mean, it's called the old Benoni. The modern Benoni is with knight f6, then c4, then after c4 we play c5 and the transposition to this position with the pawn on d5, the pawn on c4, c5 and the knight on f6 occurs. But here we can reach the same position through transposition here if they play c4, and we do, allowing us to play the Benko Gambit, a beautiful and interesting dynamic positional, all sorts of adjectives I could use here, gambit, to fight a very interesting fight against 1d4. So we're going to go for a6 here. Not only we're tearing open our b file, but we tear open the a file as well. Then g6. I could recapture this pawn in one of three different ways: the knight, the bishop, or the rook, but no one cares, because I can recapture that whenever the hell I want. And for now, I'm going to get castled. I'm going to get an absolute beast of a bishop on this diagonal. Castle, presumably, should we see knight to f3, will actually be following precisely, I do believe, maybe not precisely, but will transpose into the exact position from a game that Magnus Carlsen played with the black pieces against Boris Gelfand that I've referenced a couple times on this channel, I do believe, in which Magnus played queen to a5. Setting up a pin here on this knight, which is defending the e-pawn, so really you've got two choices. Do you break the pin, or do you develop a bishop to defend the pawn? I mean, both seem innocuous, useful moves that you might as well go for. I should address the fact that I'm currently wearing a crazy outfit to be recording a YouTube video in. It's 1 in the morning and I've got, this is my massive hoodie. This whole thing is a hood. I mean, I'm comfortable as hell. But anyway, on with the explanation. Bishop d2 is in fact the correct choice. Bishop d3 allows for a crazy, brilliant move as played in that Magnus game. But Bishop d3 makes a lot of sense. The queen is actually relatively well positioned on a5. There's no real productive discovery with this pony. We can play d6, consolidate our beautiful pawn structure. We've got the gorgeous bishop, we've got the semi-open A and B files, and at this point, I mean, it seems like my opponent's developed each of their three pieces, and we might be about to see why it's kind of a pretty damn good idea to delay recapturing this pawn, at least until perhaps this moment. You know, while we've got other productive stuff to do, pushing the pawn to g6, the pawn to d6, fiancountering the bishop, castling, developing the knight, etc., we might as well get on with that, because after bishop e2, now when we take, very often, you don't want to leave that bishop sitting there on this diagonal. Now, maybe they just castle, maybe that's absolutely fine, but it's not completely obvious that they want to leave this bishop here along this diagonal forever, and so maybe they choose to trade it off. And if they do, then we'd have kind of wasted the tempo there with this little stutter step to e2 and then to a6. If we'd taken that a move earlier, let's say right here with bishop takes a6 now, they could just chop this off. And then, you know, if we played knight takes, for instance, just castle straight away. If we play queen takes, maybe fight to castle with queen e2, etc. But I'm going to go and get a bottle of water real quick. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I've got a bit of a cold going on. Hopefully I do not burn too much time. In fact, you know what? I'm going to make a move and then get a bottle of water. What am I going to do, though? Knight bd7 makes a lot of sense. Basically, what we've done is opened, or, you know, we've got the semi-open A and B files. Let's slap the rooks there. You know, we've got the bishop putting great pressure over here. The rooks could hypothetically be putting great pressure over here. So I'm just going to play knight bd7, sprint to get a bottle of water. 1 second. And I seem to be back with a glass and a bottle because I'm ill. I do not wish to drink straight from the bottle and make my girlfriend ill. So it seems my opponent... Oh, okay. I was about to say it seems my opponent hasn't yet moved. Let's decant. I wonder if the mic's going to pick this up. I don't know if I'll have left all of that in this video. Anyway, flipping out, focus on the game. Okay, a4's been played. I see no reason why I wouldn't play... Actually, yes, I do. You're preparing this, maybe? I just don't care about that, though. I can always go queen b6. So I think I'm just going to start with rook b8. I mean, this has to make some sense. We align a lot of pressure on b2 here, and even though I've wasted a lot of time just messing around in this video, I seem to somehow... Damn it, I was going to say be up on time. Hold on. Let me not fall into the trap of now rushing a move just to be up on time. I was waiting the requisite 3 seconds to be up on time, but unfortunately... You know what? Queen takes is kind of obvious. We're not getting discovered on here. Okay. In, you know, 8 seconds, I'll be up on time. Now, at the moment, I am down a pawn. However, we've got fantastic activity on the b file, and what I'm thinking is that very possibly just stacking the rooks, trying to infiltrate on b3 even could be a good idea. But one quite common idea, especially when they haven't gone for this h3 prophylaxis that often people go for in playing against the Benko, is to play knight g4. Knight to g4 to basically reroute in to e5. Effectively, we clearly sort of concede that our opponent has a space advantage in the center. You know, we don't have loads of beautiful squares to be playing around with these knights on, and the knights kind of compete for a select few squares. Like this knight here, not really got much forward momentum. Also, it's kind of in the way of the bishop on this diagonal, and I don't know, it seems that both of these knights might want to be here, or both of these knights might want to be on e5. Trading off a pair of the pieces, I do believe, at least just anecdotally, can very often help, and I think objectively is a pretty well-founded idea. We are now up on time, by the way, because we don't exactly have a major space advantage, but what we do have is a very, very solid pawn structure. What the hell does that achieve? I couldn't possibly tell you. Are you going to play rook b3? Is that actually the idea? I mean, I also wanted to get into c4 or maybe d3, basically via e5. There are very particular squares when you understand the Benko to a reasonable extent that you're aiming to infiltrate on, but I mean, right now, this knight e5 comes with tempo, or knight g5, I should say, comes with tempo. I am just threatening to trash your pawns here, so, you know, there's a couple things you can do. The most obvious is, of course, to trade. You could also defend this, but actually this might hang, so that probably makes no sense, ignoring that very egregious voice break. 1 second. I'm absolutely dying over here of some kind of man flu, and I'm still bringing the content. Smash a subscribe. We're going to take with the... we're going to take with the knight, and... yeah, okay, they see my potential infiltration to c4 and raise me a b3 to prevent such infiltration. However, now your rook makes absolutely no sense on a3. I don't know what you're doing here. Maybe also this diagonal's a little softer. I'm still feeling good. Maybe this and this. Maybe just stacking the rooks here because this seems to be a bit of a liability. I don't know, at some point you'd imagine knight b5 is going to happen, and I just don't feel good about that. There's not an idea to go like sack a rook and then knight c4, is there? Is that completely stupid? That might be completely stupid. I think it is, because you could just go bishop here, and then presumably I'd need to take, and you take, and I guess, yeah, I've just lost a knight for a pawn there, right? Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be inventive here. I'm trying to come up with some cool tactics. Right, I think I'm going to start with rook b7. It just adds another dimension to the play with the rooks. Maybe I can stack here. Knight b5 at least immediately is not remotely concerning because, okay, I can just sack and then win the rook there. So we've got this pin going on here. I do need to be careful that I don't get into major time trouble for absolutely no reason. But it's kind of hard to see how my opponent's going to make progress unless actually the very obvious f4 ensues. If you do go for that, maybe I'll be kind of compelled to go for a quick knight d3, maybe pivoting into b4, dancing around with the pony in some vaguely appropriate way. But I do just think, like, you got a bit of a backwards pawn there. Maybe I can mount some serious pressure on it. Maybe at some point you bring the queen behind to defend and then you step into all sorts of pins, or I don't know. It just seems like tactics are brewing and my pieces make kind of quite a lot of sense. And I mean, okay, at the very least, this rook is absolute nonsense. So I think I'm going to start to try and maybe squeeze out a little time advantage from this position. I do believe my opponent's got a kind of more uncomfortable position. If I hadn't been messing around so much and absolutely waffling, I could probably already have a time advantage, but my time advantage grows closer and closer. And I do believe it's just going to be kind of harder for them to navigate appropriately, at least over the next few moves, or not. Or they were just thinking about this. Fair enough. Not here, not here. This feels kind of stupid. This is a little regressive. I like this. I can always come back to b4, whatever. That's my thought process so far. Maybe this check is appropriate. In fact, that's a little threat even. That's a sneaky little threat. It's just stuff for them to think about, you know? Stuff for them to think about, no doubt. The knight can always come to b4 and kind of blockade and chill here, and then maybe I mount a bunch of pressure, eventually move the knight and unleash said pressure on that backwards pawn. And as we see now, I think, I mean, I've got a, well, I was going to say non-trivial time advantage. It's a fairly trivial time advantage so far, but they spend a little bit worrying about this. They spend a little bit, oh, hold on. Oh, okay, actually, are you just literally going to go bishop here? Although if you do that, do I have knight here? Oh, that's nasty. Bishop check. Your rook f3, which, I don't know, you might have just been threatening this, but also the natural looking bishop e3, you somehow, I do believe, walk into a fork on the back rank, which is, I mean, maybe my opponent misses this. It kind of seems non-obvious, but if you don't go for this, I mean, I guess you could just bring the king across. Worst case, I can step here. I'm asking another question. Maybe if you go here, I can give the check. You step here and I have some meaningful discovery. I don't really see it. Ooh, actually, yeah, I do. What the hell? Why would you do that? Are you just going to sack? Is that the idea? Why didn't they go here? Oh, because they walk into another discovery. Wow, this was a way more potent move than I realized. Okay, hold on. I can't possibly disagree with this check. I think they're going to sack. I don't think you should let me take on e4 with a discovered check. Maybe they do. Maybe they just decide to step here and say, listen. Listen. Oh no, oh my lord, if you do that, you... No, I was going to say get mated, double check here and then mate, but actually the rook holds that square, of course. Okay, there's some interesting stuff going on here, though, with this diagonal, with the check. I really do think they're going to sack, and I think they're going to spend, again, a little more time just thinking about it. Just... Hold on. Okay, I at least have this. Double check, only move. I don't have like a smothered mate there, you know? Seems like I kind of should, but I just don't. I think I can just take this with check. And I think if you then go bishop here, this should be a problem. I'm starting with this. I'm starting with this because it's a discovered check. It takes a free pawn, it collapses the center, and we can just repeat at the very least. Or I can pick this up and say thank you very much. Might as well repeat once. I don't know. Hold on. Okay, I don't want to waste too much time here because I'm definitely slightly better. Double check here. Is there anything there? Please just tell me there's something there somehow, some way. I don't think there is, unfortunately. Maybe knight here would be pretty funny in the rook. That's actually not completely stupid, but I think it might be completely stupid at the same time. Hold on. Final thought. Right. I don't know. It really feels like I should have something amazing here. I just don't think I do. And I'm going to cry myself to sleep if I flag this game. So, we'll give the check. Wasted a bit of time there, hoping for something maybe more than I deserve from the position. And I guess we'll pick this up. We've won back a key central pawn. We've got the initiative here. We've got the unrivaled dark squared bishop sitting beautifully here. And it does seem like I can probably start to just go pretty simple rook here. And again, you've got problematic pawns. Isolated and overextended is maybe one way you could classify this d5 pawn. Backwards and defended by a poorly flexible rook is another way you could describe this pawn. You know, trapped in the corner is a way you could describe the king. It's not a very favorable interpretation of things, but bring the bishop back to here actually, just in case e7 is a bit of a weak point. Now, I don't imagine... Whoa. Can I do this after? I think I might be able to. I said this was defended by a not very flexible rook. I have takes. I think I can just do this, and then play bishop b2. And I'm fairly sure, as I said, this pawn is defended, but not by a flexible rook. You have one move with this rook that doesn't hang it, and then I take it. And I do believe the pressure This is... I mean, sometimes your plan just absolutely works, you know? Sometimes things happen precisely as you envisaged or envisioned. Those words are so similar and mean basically the same thing, and it confuses me every single time. And now I do believe you can start pushing this pawn, sure. But I'm going to go bishop here to start with, getting on the only dark square after I play c4 that's left in this pawn's path towards promotion. Also threatening mate in 2, by the way, which is why I put the bishop here particularly. There's no reason to do this, is there? And I do believe... Okay, but now they can take this, and that's actually... Before they couldn't take because of the mate. Hold on. Check. Here, and I just lose. Fantastic. They do have an outside pass pawn. 1 second. Should I try and keep the bishop and then go back? Okay, now I'm scared. Damn it. I have enough time to get back to b8 and then a8. And I don't think I'm losing, because I think this knight's too slow. I don't really want to let you take, but maybe I should have been comfortable with that. I just like my... immortal Benko pawn structure that I never have to touch. I think I should just be better with the bishop, because especially once you get to a7, that's a dark square, and I can lock that pawn on a dark square, and the second you try and step across and do something like this, obviously the bishop holds for now, but you've got to get your knight in somehow. Also, I'm kind of dominating that knight at least immediately, so your natural path to getting to b5, like a7 here, trying to get to b5 to then, or even to c6, like how do you access c6? Via a5? How do you get there? Well, here, then here and here, but even then you can't go there with the rook, so you got to come up and across there. It feels like it just takes like 18 moves for them to do this. Okay, let's just bring the king. Why not? I'm definitely worried about this. Should I have done this and this? Almost certainly. Damn it. Here. Oh, hold on. No, that just loses. Okay. I literally didn't even think about the fact that was a hanging pony. I should have done e6. Why am I not doing e6? Let's play e6. This is such an obvious move. I don't know why I'm not. And then I can play bishop d8 if you don't go for Oh, hello. Move. Okay. Okay. And, okay. You can't put that back here. I can do this. There's obviously this pawn. That's interesting. I could have just chopped that off. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, I'm the greatest chess player of all time. That wasn't even close. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Go for bishop to b5, and then if they counter-attack here, we can take another free pawn. Oh, hello. You just caught me practicing the Scotch on chessreps.com, a wonderful website and the sponsor of this video. Chessreps.com is a chess opening course website with many, many opening courses on. They cover a vast variety of openings from more popular ones like the Scotch, the Vienna, to even things like the Rousseau Gambit here. They're well-created, digestible opening courses that give you a lot of key, exciting lines, and an excellent tool for, if you're currently feeling a little bored of your repertoire, dipping your toes into something else and switching it up maybe. If you're remotely interested, check out the link in the description, but if not, let's get into the analysis. Okay, here we are in the analysis. Now, at first glance, prima facie, if you will, this graph looks to be incredibly spastic. However, when we take note of the fact that it is after this point here, this point right here, that I had less than a minute. I mean, this is halfway. We're looking at halfway along this graph. Like all of this nonsense over here, I had 43 seconds or less. We get to the real nonsense where I started blundering stuff. I mean, yeah, I had like 10 seconds. So honestly, up until move 28, I'm actually very happy with this because, okay, I gave away, I need to obviously look at rook fba because apparently that's not a fantastic idea. But apart from that, like, white maintained their rough opening advantage. I gave them one opportunity to get some serious advantage. They didn't really take it. Maybe a couple other opportunities, kind of trivial though. And then eventually I seem to get a serious advantage myself, hold on to it and start to convert it up until rook takes d3. And then yeah, okay. I mean, entering the endgame, that liquidation, the whole bishop b2 idea, and then picking up that pawn probably was not the way. I mean, the computer's telling me it was not the way to go, but still reasonable. I don't know, not exactly the pinnacle of most accurate chess we've ever seen, but still, hopefully, some interesting and good stuff. And most of the time spent during that game was spent on good chess, and then obviously the length of the graph is not weighted for the time spent per move. That'd be an interesting graph, actually, if you could sort of weight the length. You know, it wasn't just an even interval per move, but it was the evaluation over time, I guess? Or does that make any sense, though? Because then you can just be deep thinking. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to do a very quick analysis because I've just hit an absolute wall. I need to go to bed. It's 1:30 in the morning. Forgive me. But we'll keep the Masters database open for now. D5, and as we can see, knight f6, c4, and we go from 1,600 games in the Masters database to all of a sudden after c4, 33,000. How is that the case? Well, precisely because of that transposition that I detailed towards the start, the fact that it's generally, this position arises from a more modern Benoni. However, b5, Benko Gambit, played 16,000 times in the Masters database, probably a billion times in the Lichess. Yeah, look, 5.5 million times in the Lichess database, to pretty great effect over the entire database. I mean, 50 to 45% for black. Pretty good stuff. But I do believe, I mean, this is literally all theory up to this point. Queen a5, and you can see here this game that I was referencing, Boris Gelfand, Magnus Carlsen. Bishop d3 was played. There's then the brilliant knight d5. Instead, though, bishop d2, I go for d6, although bishop takes a6 at this moment is actually the top master move. What the hell? Is it the top engine move? Huh. There's kind of this practical idea that I've always liked about delaying this as long as possible. But maybe I shouldn't be delaying it right here. I wonder why. Why is d6 not... I guess they have a7 as an interesting idea, and then I don't recapture this naturally, and I draw my queen away, and there's maybe knight b5. Okay, that little a7 sort of forcibly give back the pawn is an annoying nuance here that I probably need to get my head around far more. However, pretty much up until here, I mean, we're still tracking like 80 master games. Not exactly move order-wise, but they castle. I go for knight bd7, which is a reasonable move. Again, still in 20 master games. The idea to literally go takes here and then queen a6 is something I'm familiar with. I didn't want to enter the endgame that quickly, I don't think. I quite like the idea of just developing the knight and then rook f to b8. It would have been punishable to some extent by knight to b5, although I kind of just said I didn't care. I could play queen here. I guess queen c2, and apparently they're doing well. But yeah, I don't know. The +2 on the evaluation graph here seems like a bit of an exaggeration. It seems to be more like a +1.4 that maybe like, okay, yeah, 1.5, sure. I can come here and here. It's not the end of the world. Maybe I should just be playing that bishop takes a2 earlier, or maybe even the bishop takes a6 earlier. I'll look into that a little more tomorrow when I have more of a brain to look into it with. But from this point, rook, okay, I could have gone for rook b4. That's kind of heartbreaking that I didn't find that. But apart from that, still a very reasonable resource. Rook b4, you know what? I really need to keep that in mind, because how the hell is rook b4 just always a great idea. Queen d3, again, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's in the back of my mind. The queen trade very often does benefit black. I mean, this endgame is quite pleasant for black. However, now, knight e3 very reasonable, although it lists it as a mistake because I could have had knight g4. Why is that powerful? If h3 here? I completely forgot about this move, excuse me. Okay, yeah, I didn't really think about knight g4 with the idea of setting up the check. That's insanely my bad. I kind of played knight d3 and then thought about the check here. But once I got bishop d4, fantastic. If they'd gone for this, I would have, of course, had knight e1, disgusting. They move the king, check here, then picking this up, great. Going back to f2. I could have gone for c4 here. Know what the hell that achieves. Knight d1 check, apparently. It doesn't like me going back here. Oh no, I mean, it's reasonable. It's not the end of the world. What did it want, though? Knight d1 check. King here. Oh, no, then I have to go back to here. So it's not about knight d1 at all. It's about the eventual c4. Which, I mean, what? If you take, then I have rook b2. Yeah, that's disgusting. Because then, of course, I draw the queen across. That's absolutely filthy. Don't blame myself for not saying that. c4 to play rook b2 to get knight d3 or knight d1. That's crazy stuff. But instead, we cash in that out square bishop. We stack here. And then I believe bishop f6, fantastic. Takes. And here c4. You're... Sorry. I'll have censored that, but maybe you can read my lips and tell what I said there. I'm indeed a foolish fool, because literally just c4 would have been so easy to play there. I got a little overexcited with the fact that I talked about the inflexibility of this rook, went for bishop b2. Again, I'm still better here. This is a better endgame, but I didn't handle it fantastically. I had less than a minute, or rather, sorry, a minute 17 here, and then less than a minute for some reason after taking ages to play bishop f6. And, you know, I've still got winning chances. I'm still slightly better, but it's way harder. I definitely should have played c4 there. Obviously, I'm just, you know, if you move the rook, I'm just going to take this, and I've got an absolute beast of a pass pawn with the rooks behind. I should have exploited that weaker back rank far more. I should have exploited that weak back rank as a matter of urgency, and did not, and I can only apologize for that. However, we then get to a position where, yeah, literally none of this matters. I cannot bring myself to analyze any of this. This was just me trying to flag my opponent, and you know what? I did it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, there's a bonus exclusive one on the Patreon every single Sunday. There are 35 currently out, soon to be 36, a nice square number for you guys. You'll also get your name engraved, immortalized on the esteemed patron scroll at the end of all my videos as a small token of thanks, and you'll get discounts from anything that I sell on the Patreon, including the Blumenfeld Bible, which is out and ready for your consumption. It's a massive deep dive into my personal favorite opening, the Blumenfeld. I'll probably plug that slightly more heavily when I actually play a Blumenfeld, not a Benko Gambit, which is about as far away from a Blumenfeld as you can get. But, you know, there's great stuff happening over on the Patreon. It's the best way to support the channel. If you're not remotely interested, I nevertheless immensely appreciate you guys for watching my videos. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.